Casey Rourke sat in the small, dim room of the space station. The hum of engines and distant chatter of travelers filled the air. His fingers tapped lightly on the table as he waited. It was not the first time Casey had been hired as a bodyguard. But this job was different, much different. He had been told only a little about his client, the alien princess of the Talari Dominion. The Talari were an ancient alien race, part of the Intergalactic Council. They had powerful technology and ruled many star systems. Their rulers were chosen carefully, and the princess was next in line. Casey didn't care much for politics. He was a former Earth soldier, now a mercenary. He protected people for money, and this job promised a good paycheck. That was enough. The door slid open, and a figure entered the room. Casey's eyes narrowed. The being was unlike any human or alien he had seen before. Eric stepped inside with a calm but strong presence. His skin was a smooth, pale blue with faint, shimmering patterns. His eyes were deep violet, shining with intelligence and quiet power. His features were delicate but firm, blending what Casey guessed were male and female traits. Eric's tall, slender frame moved gracefully, but with hidden strength. Casey Rourke. Eric's voice was soft but sure. "That's me." Casey stood, studying the alien. "So, you're the princess." Eric smiled slightly. "I am the High Sovereign. Heir. Yes. Until my coronation, I hold the title of princess. After that, I will become the ruler of the Talari Dominion." Casey nodded. "Sounds like you've got a big job ahead." "Indeed." Eric's smile faded. "And many who want me dead before that happens." Casey's eyes darkened. He had faced danger before, but this sounded serious. He said, "You are the best." "They need me alive, and I'm counting on you," Eric said, locking eyes with Casey. "Don't care why. I'm here to protect you." The words felt cold, but honest. The first few days were tense. Casey learned that Eric was not just a royal figure, but a skilled diplomat and strategist. He was also sarcastic and quick-witted, often teasing Casey about his rough ways. "You humans think you're so tough," Eric said one evening as they prepared for a patrol on the station's outer rim. Casey grinned. "We have to be. Earth's a tough place." Eric raised an eyebrow. "I'm curious how well that toughness will hold up when someone tries to kill you." Casey smirked. "You'll see." That night, Casey kept watch. His instincts told him something was wrong. The station was too quiet. Suddenly, alarms blared. Casey grabbed Eric's arm. "Move, now." They dashed through the narrow corridors as flashes of light and explosions rocked the station. Shadowy figures in advanced stealth suits attacked from the dark. Casey fought fiercely, his experience in close combat saving them both. Using Earth-style tactics and quick thinking, he outmaneuvered the attackers, surprising even himself. Eric was impressed. "You fight well. I expected diplomats to be more fragile." Casey chuckled. "We're full of surprises." They escaped to the shuttle bay, where Eric quickly activated a hidden transmitter. "The council needs to know who sent those assassins." Casey looked around warily. "You think it's someone from your own side?" Eric nodded. "Yes. There are powerful enemies within the council who want to stop my coronation. They fear change." Casey clenched his fists. "Then we better be ready, because I'm not letting anyone kill you." Over the next days, Casey taught Eric some basic survival skills. Eric was quick to learn, though he still moved with royal grace. Casey also learned more about the Talari culture, their history, their politics, and their people. "You humans have no idea how complex our world is," Eric explained one afternoon as they sat in the shuttle. "I've dealt with complex," Casey replied. "Back on Earth, politics can kill faster than guns." Eric smiled softly. "Then you understand why I need you." Casey nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility grow heavier. Protecting a princess was no longer just a job. It was something more. One evening, they received a message from the Intergalactic Council. It was a warning. Eric's sibling, a powerful figure named Narek, was moving forces to challenge Eric's claim to the throne. Civil war was coming. Eric looked troubled. This family fight could tear the Dominion apart. Casey put a hand on his shoulder. "Then we fight together." You're not alone in this. Eric met his gaze, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. Thank you, Casey. They prepared for what was coming, knowing that their journey had only just begun, as they stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Casey thought about how much his life had changed. From Earth's battlefields to guarding an alien princess, he had learned that sometimes the greatest battles were for more than just survival. They were for hope, and for the first time in a long time, Casey believed that maybe, just maybe, they could win. The cold stars stretched out before Casey and Eric as their small shuttle slipped away from the capital moon. The city below was a sparkling jewel, but for them, it was no longer a safe place. The betrayal in the council had forced them to flee, and the war was coming closer every moment. The silence inside the shuttle was heavy, filled with the weight of uncertain futures. Casey stared at the controls, thinking about what had just happened. He could still see the faces of those who had tried to kill Eric, mercenaries and spies hiding behind fake smiles, all aiming to end the heir's life before the coronation. Eric finally broke the silence. I never expected the council to betray me like this. Casey didn't answer right away. He wasn't surprised. Politics, in his experience, always had sharp edges, especially when power was at stake. We need to find a place where no one will look for us, Casey said finally. Eric nodded. There is a colony on the edge of the Dominion. It is rough and lawless, but it will keep us hidden. The colony was called Kara's Reach, a mining world filled with humans and aliens living far from the laws of the big powers. It was a dangerous place, but Casey knew that danger better than most. Shuttle landed with a soft thud in the dusty air of Kara's Reach. The planet's red soil stretched out beneath a pale orange sky. The colony was a mess of metal buildings, pipes, and flashing lights. It smelled like fuel and sweat. Eric looked out the window, his face unreadable. This is your kind of place? Casey smiled a little. This is home for people who don't want to be found. They stepped off the shuttle and immediately felt the eyes of the locals on them, humans and aliens alike, wary and curious. Casey led Eric through the streets, keeping to the shadows. He had contacts here, friends who owed him favors, and understood the value of keeping a secret. That night, in a small back room of a cantina, Casey introduced Eric to some of his allies. Everyone. This is Eric, Casey said quietly. He's the future ruler of the Talari Dominion. The room went silent for a moment, then people whispered among themselves. One woman, a tough human with a cybernetic arm, stepped forward. You're lucky to have a protector like him. Eric smiled faintly. I am beginning to understand that. Days passed. Casey trained Eric in ways the council never would. How to move quietly, how to fight in close quarters, how to survive. When everything around you was dangerous, Eric learned quickly. His royal grace became a weapon, his intelligence sharpened by Casey's hard lessons. One evening, Casey took Eric to a narrow alley behind the cantina. Time to see if you can handle yourself. Suddenly, 3 mercenaries stepped from the shadows. They wore dark suits with strange devices, advanced weapons and shields. Casey whispered, "Stay close." The fight began. Casey moved with practiced skill, dodging blasts and striking quickly. But the alien mercenaries had strength and technology he hadn't seen before. Eric watched, then stepped forward. He moved with surprising speed, his hands glowing faintly with strange energy. Casey's eyes widened. What was that? Eric grinned. A gift from my people. The mercenaries hesitated, surprised by Eric's sudden power. Using the energy, Eric knocked one down and helped Casey with the others. After the fight, Casey patted Eric on the back. Not bad for a princess. Eric laughed softly. Maybe you humans are not so bad. As they settled back in the cantina, Eric revealed more about the danger waiting for them. My sibling Narek is gathering forces to claim the throne by force, he said. Does not want peace. He wants war. Casey frowned. Like you're going to need more than just me. Eric looked at him seriously. You may be the strongest ally I have. The days on Kara's Reach were tense, Casey and Eric made plans. They gathered information, contacted old friends, and prepared for the worst. One night, as they walked through the noisy streets, Casey noticed a group of strangers watching them closely. "Trouble," Casey said quietly, before they could react. The strangers attacked. It was a fierce fight. Casey used everything he had learned from Earth's battlefields: his fists, his feet, his quick mind. But this fight was different. The enemies had strange weapons and tactics. Eric joined the fight, his glowing hands striking like lightning. Together, they drove the attackers back, breathing hard. Casey looked at Eric. "We're going to have to keep moving if this keeps up." Eric nodded. "They do not like when we win." After the fight, they found refuge in an old safe house. On the edge of the colony, Casey sat beside Eric. "You're ready to face Narek now?" Eric's face was serious. "I must. For the future of my people." Casey put a hand on Eric's shoulder, and we'll face him together. Eric smiled with quiet hope. "Thank you, Casey. You are not just my protector anymore. You are my friend." Casey felt something warm in his chest. It was more than friendship, but he wasn't ready to say it yet. As the stars shone over Kara's reach, Casey and Eric prepared for the battles to come. The road ahead was dangerous, but they were no longer alone, and that made all the difference. The stars glittered cold and distant as Casey and Eric approached the Talari homeworld. The planet's swirling blue-green surface shimmered through the shuttle's viewports. This was where it all would be decided, the heart of the Dominion. The seat of power and danger, Eric sat quietly, his gaze fixed on the planet below. Casey watched him and saw not just a royal figure, but a young leader carrying the weight of an entire people. "This is where your family waits," Casey said. Softly, Eric nodded. "And where they prepare to tear my claim apart." The shuttle landed on a gleaming platform, surrounded by towering spires. The capital city was a strange mix of ancient elegance and modern technology. It pulsed with political energy. As they stepped out, they were greeted by Eric's trusted advisors and guards. Some looked relieved to see him alive. Others wore faces of suspicion. In the palace halls, Casey noticed how Eric's presence changed the atmosphere. The air was not just royalty, but a symbol of hope for many. Eric said, "I must explain something important before we move forward." They walked through a quiet garden, lit by strange glowing plants. "My sibling Narek's claim is strong," Eric said, "but the council has an ancient rule one that can decide who will rule." Casey frowned. "What rule?" Eric took a deep breath. "In our culture, to claim the throne without bloodshed, the heir must bond with another being from a different species. This bond is both political and personal. It symbolizes unity across worlds." Casey blinked. "Bond." Eric's violet eyes met Casey's. "It is more than an alliance. It is a connection that cannot be broken. It shows that the heir is worthy, able to unite the Dominion with others." Casey felt the weight of the moment. "And you want to bond with me?" "Yes," Eric said quietly. "It is risky, but it is the best way to end the conflict and show the council that change is coming." Casey hesitated. He was a soldier, not a politician. But he understood something deeper. "We've already fought together," Casey said. "Maybe this is just the next battle." Eric smiled, hope lighting his face. Before the bonding ceremony, they met with the council representatives. The atmosphere was tense, filled with whispers and sideways glances. One official, cold and hard-eyed, spoke first. "The bonding is a tradition, but it is not guaranteed to stop a war. Many doubt that a human like you can represent the Dominion's future." Casey's jaw tightened. Humans aren't just fighters, or survivors, friends, and sometimes the best allies you can find. Eric stood tall. "The choice is not just mine. The people want peace. They want something new." The council grudgingly allowed the ceremony to proceed. But the tension in the room was thick. The bonding ceremony was held in a great hall filled with alien symbols and glowing light. Eric and Casey stood before a council of elders. Their hands joined. The ritual began with an ancient chant. As the ceremony continued, Casey felt a strange energy flow between them, a warmth and strength unlike anything he had experienced. The bond was not just political, it was personal and powerful. Suddenly alarms sounded. Outside warships appeared. In the sky, and the city was under attack, Casey and Eric exchanged a glance. This was no accident. The council chamber erupted into chaos. "We are under siege," Eric said, gripping Casey's hand tightly. "Narek's forces and others are attacking. They want to stop the bonding and the future it represents." Casey's soldier instincts kicked in, then we fight. Together. They rushed to the city walls where loyalists gathered to defend the capital. The battle was fierce. Explosions rocked the streets. Strange weapons fired in every direction. Casey led a squad of mixed human and Talari fighters, using tactics learned on Earth and Kara's reach. His quick thinking and human unpredictability surprised the enemy. Eric used his powers to protect the defenders and rally the people in the thick of the fight. Casey spotted a group of mercenaries trying to flank the defenders. He shouted to Eric, "I'll handle them. You protect the city." Casey moved fast, using the city's narrow alleys and old passages to ambush the attackers. His earth-trained senses detected hidden traps and ambushes, his fight style mixing martial arts with street smarts, perfectly against the alien mercenaries. Eric's voice echoed behind him, calling out orders and encouragement. After hours of brutal fighting, the defenders held the line. Narek's forces were pushed back, but the cost was high. The city was damaged and many were wounded. Casey and Eric regrouped inside the palace. Eric's face was set with determination. "We cannot let this war tear us apart," he said. "The bond we share is proof that there is another way." Casey nodded. "And we have to make sure the council listens." The next day, a message came from the council. Despite the ceremony, they would block Eric's ascension to the throne. They claimed Earth's involvement made him unstable, untrustworthy. Eric's eyes darkened. They fear change more than they fear war. Casey's jaw tightened. "Then it's up to us to change things." Eric surprised him by placing a hand on Casey's shoulder. "I have made a decision." Casey looked at him carefully. "I will not take the throne without your support," Eric said. "If the council wants to keep me out, I will step aside for now. But I will not abandon my people or you." Casey's heart raced. "It is. That mean for us?" Eric smiled softly. "It means we face the future together, no matter where it leads." The palace buzzed with rumors and uncertainty. Eric's choice shocked many but inspired others. Casey knew that this was only the beginning. The fight for the Dominion's future and their own was far from over as they looked out over the city once more. Casey realized something deep inside him had changed. He wasn't just a soldier or a bodyguard anymore. He was part of something bigger, a new hope, and he was ready to fight for it. The palace was quieter now. The sounds of battle had faded, but the tension inside grew stronger. Casey sat in a dim room, staring at the soft glow of the city below. Eric was somewhere else in the palace, meeting with advisors and planning. Their next move, the bond between them was no longer just a ritual, it was real. But that brought new challenges. Some in the council still hated Casey's presence. Others whispered behind their backs, unsure if the bond could truly change centuries of politics. Casey clenched his fists. Protecting Eric was no longer just about keeping him alive. It was about keeping him safe from everyone, friends and enemies alike. The next morning, Eric found Casey practicing combat moves in the training hall. Casey's movements were sharp and focused, but his eyes carried fatigue. "You worry too much," Eric said, stepping into the room. Casey stopped and looked up. "Someone's going to try to kill you again, and this time, they might not just want the throne. They want to destroy everything we're building." Eric nodded slowly. "I know. That is why I have called for a secret meeting tonight." Casey raised an eyebrow. "With who?" "My most trusted allies," Eric replied. "We must unite all who believe in peace before the council's divisions tear us apart." That night, in a hidden chamber beneath the palace, Rick and Casey met with a small group of loyal supporters, humans and aliens alike. The room was tense, but hopeful. Eric spoke first. "We face a crossroads. Eric grows stronger every day. If we do not act soon, the Dominion will fall into chaos." One elder, an ancient Talari, with silver hair and wise eyes, nodded. "The bond between species is new and fragile, but it is our best chance." Casey looked around. "We'll need more than words. We need allies. People who are willing to fight and believe." As the meeting ended, Eric turned to Casey. "I want you to lead a mission." Casey blinked. "Me? What kind of mission?" Eric's eyes were serious. "There is a hidden outpost where Narek's forces gather weapons. If we destroy it, we can slow his advance." Casey felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "I'll do it." The next day, Casey and a small team left the capital aboard a stealth ship. The journey to the outpost was tense and silent. Casey went over the plan again and again in his mind. The outpost was on a barren moon, covered in ice and rocky craters. The team landed under the cover of darkness. Casey's heart pounded as they moved through the cold silence. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Suddenly a patrol spotted them. The battle began. Casey's team fought fiercely, blending Earth tactics with Talari technology. Explosions lit the dark, and the cold air was filled with shouts and gunfire. Casey found the weapon's storage and set charges to destroy it. Just as they finished, an alarm sounded. "We have to get out, now," Casey shouted. The team ran through narrow tunnels as enemy reinforcements closed in. Casey's mind raced, searching for an escape route. At the last moment, he saw a small airlock leading outside. "Follow me," he yelled. They blasted out into the cold, jumping into their ship just as the outpost exploded behind them. Back on the shuttle, Casey's body shook with adrenaline. Eric was waiting when they landed, his face calm but proud. "You did well," Eric said quietly. "You risked everything for this." Casey wiped sweat from his brow. "I didn't do it alone, but it's not over." Eric nodded. "Narek will respond. We must be ready." Days later, the council grew restless. Rumors spread that Casey's team had attacked a peaceful settlement. The political games began again. Casey and Eric found themselves under pressure, not only from enemies, but from supposed friends. One night, a message arrived, an invitation to a council hearing to answer. Accusations. Eric looked weary. "They want to break us apart." Casey clenched his jaw, "and we don't give them the chance." At the hearing, Casey and Eric faced their accusers. The council chambers were cold and filled with tension. One official accused Casey of violence. In sabotage, Casey stood tall. "We attacked a weapons outpost, not innocent people. We fight to protect peace." Eric added, "The future of the Dominion depends on unity, not division." The debate was long and heated. Some council members supported them. Others wanted them punished. In the end, a fragile truce was called, outside the chambers. Casey caught Eric's arm. "They don't trust me," Eric said quietly. "Because of you." Casey looked shocked. "Because of me," Eric smiled sadly. "The council fears change. They fear what we represent, but I do not." Casey's heart ached. "I'm here because I believe in you," Eric's eyes shone. "And that belief gives me strength." That night, as they looked over the city, Casey felt the cost of loyalty. Protecting Eric was no longer about survival. It was about standing firm against a world that wanted to tear them apart. And Casey was ready to pay that price. The sun was setting over the capital city, painting the sky in deep reds and purples. Casey and Eric stood on the palace balcony, looking out over the city they both wanted to protect. The calm was only temporary. They both knew that the final battle was coming soon. Eric turned to Casey. "They are gathering their forces. Narek will not stop until he takes the throne." Casey nodded. "Then we don't stop either. We fight together." Their bond, once a political ritual, had grown into something stronger: trust, respect, something unspoken but powerful between them. Inside the palace, preparations were underway. Soldiers trained, weapons were checked, plans were drawn. Eric held meetings with his loyal commanders, while Casey worked with his own contacts, humans and aliens who had joined their cause. Despite the tension, Casey noticed something new. In Eric, a quiet confidence. The prince was no longer just a target or a symbol. He was a leader ready to stand against the storm. The day of the final battle arrived like a sudden thunderstorm. Dark warships filled the sky, their engines roaring. Forces had come. Casey stood beside Eric on the palace steps, looking out at the massive army approaching, thousands of soldiers, mercenaries, and strange machines. Eric took a deep breath. This is the moment. We protect our future, Casey smiled grimly, and we make sure they never forget us. The battle began with fire and noise. Explosions shook the ground, lasers cut through the air, and the sky was filled with smoke. Casey led a group of fighters through the chaos, moving with a mix of speed and careful strategy. He fought not just for survival, but for everything he believed in. For Eric, for peace, and for a chance at a better future. Eric was in the thick of it too, using his powers to protect his people and inspire his troops. His energy crackled. With strength and hope, as the fight went on, Casey found himself face to face with a heavily armed soldier. The man moved fast, but Casey was faster. Using years of training, Casey disarmed the soldier and knocked him out, breathing hard. Casey looked around and saw that the tide was turning. Eric's forces were pushing back Narek's army. Suddenly, Casey heard a shout. He turned to see Narek, himself leading an attack toward the palace. Casey's heart pounded. Narek was fierce, a dark shadow compared to Eric's light. The two brothers clashed in a battle of wills and power. Casey moved to protect Eric, blocking attacks and holding the line. Narek will not win, Casey said fiercely. Eric smiled, tired but strong, because we fight together. The final moment came when Eric and Casey stood side by side against Narek and his closest guards. The battle was brutal and close. Energy blasts flew, swords clashed, and the ground shook beneath them. But Eric's bond with Casey gave them strength beyond power. It gave them unity. With one final move, Eric used his energy to disarm Narek. While Casey knocked him to the ground, Narek looked up, defeated but angry. This isn't over. Eric stepped forward. It is over. For now. The battle won. The city slowly returned to peace. The council finally recognized Eric as the true ruler, not because of tradition, but because of his courage and vision. Casey stood proudly by his side. Their bond was no longer just a symbol, it was real. Eric took Casey's hand. Thank you for standing with me. Casey smiled. Always. In the days that followed, they worked to rebuild the Dominion stronger, fairer, and united. Casey realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a protector. It was part of a future he had helped create. Eric looked at the stars one night and said quietly, "We did this together." Casey nodded. Together until the end.